Hi, today we are going to be celebrating successes of the Wellness Champions. So, you are going to be hearing from people that are recovering from multiple sclerosis and without spending a fortune, even though many of them have tried many different things to improve their health. If we haven't met yet, my name is Pam Bartha. I am the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. And it is such a pleasure for me to share these successes because they've worked really hard. We've worked hard together. And I love sharing the successes of students that were diagnosed with chronic diseases like multiple sclerosis, and they're actually getting their health and their life back by treating the root cause. We're going to talk about the steps that they're taking, but more specifically, the miraculous improvements that they're having. So these students are in the Live Disease Free program, which is a program that teaches people how to take charge of their health. Basically, if they're dealing with any type of chronic disease, they have to play an active role in their healthcare in order to recover. And so we'll talk briefly about the steps, and then I've got an exciting announcement at the end. But let's get into their successes right away, because that is the exciting part. It's amazing what people can do to improve their health. So the first students that I'm going to share, there are a lot of students that are in the prep phase, and we call it the prep phase because they're getting ready to treat the infections that are making them sick. So this means they're following or learning how to follow the Live Disease Free diet, and they're supporting their body. And the whole purpose of the prep phase is to decrease the inflammation in their body. And that is really important because, number one, they have a lot of symptom improvements as the inflammation starts to go down. But the second really important thing is that in order to treat these chronic parasitic infestations, it's really important that we decrease inflammation, give the immune system some relief so that the treatments are going to work better. Our immune system is able to help us more in the recovery phase. So the first student, I'm just going to share just their successes because these are people that are in the program right now. We just had our live call yesterday, and so these are hot off the press. So one student shared, so she's getting ready to treat, and she shared that my digestion, bladder, and the burning in my feet have all improved. And I have very slowly been able to come off of my antidepressant medication. And so she, first of all, cut her. So I should backtrack. So what the students do is that as they're preparing to treat, as they are feeling better, they are researching the medications that they're on. And then as they decide, working with their pharmacist and their doctor, they're able to wean themselves off of all medications in time as they're ready to do that. And it's a very safe way to do it. It's just some medications you have to go off slowly. So this antidepressant, you have to go off slowly. And very important for you to note, if you are taking medications, it is really important to research, number one, their mode of action, how they work in the body, and number two, the adverse effects. Because sometimes we're taking medications, let's say we're taking an antidepressant to deal with our depression, but one of the adverse effects of the medication can cause depression. So sometimes, like we do use treatments, medications, sometimes to help us manage symptoms while we're treating the cause. But what we can also do is sometimes look for safer alternatives that may not have such awful adverse effects. So now, what I wanted to go talk about. So basically, she has been able to get off of her antidepressants. She first cut the dose in half and then every other day. And this week she said, I haven't taken any and I feel emotionally wonderful. And she's also now she's on the MS, that drug that's called the MS walking drug. I don't want to say the name of it, but she's shared that she just is now like, with that drug also, people are decreasing it in half very slowly. And so she said, I just take my one pill, daytime pill, and not the nighttime pill, and that seems to be working really well. So this is getting ready to treat. And the neat thing is that the drugs that, like, as the inflammation starts to go down, then we notice things like depression are no longer a problem, and then we don't need our antidepressants, but we have to come off them safely and slowly. Same thing with the other disease-modifying drugs. The next student is also in the prep phase, and she's following the Live Disease-Free diet, and she's just kind of learning about the treatment phase, and the students play an active role in building their game plan to treat. So this is a skill that I want them to know for the rest of their life. So she's noticed that her brain fog has improved just through the prep phase, and she can read for longer periods of time. She said her husband's really noticed symptom improvements in her. More energy, better mood. Her bladder is 90% better. Her bladder was so bad that she couldn't even travel for 2 hours to make it to a bathroom. Going shopping, she could hardly make it home. And now she can travel, and she doesn't even, when she gets to her destination, she doesn't even have to run to the bathroom anymore, and no longer having the accidents either. And she's able to shop and travel without any accidents. And she said, this is really impacting my quality of life. So remember, she's just getting ready. She's not treating it. She's just starting to get that inflammation down in the body. And her bladder was so bad that the doctors were going to give her medications and an apparatus to try to get the bladder not to be so urgent. But she did it all on her own, simply with diet. She's tried so many things in the past. Maybe you can relate. She's done the Roy Swank diet. She's done the Wahls protocol. She's been vegan. She's tried a lot of different diets, and also the medical median she's done, worked with many different practitioners. She's worked with somebody who does energy testing, somebody who's a functional medicine doctor, lots of different therapies, and nothing has made a difference. Just with diet alone, just starting to get ready to treat, she's already noticing these huge symptom improvements. And this is, as a coach, this is what I'm looking at with my students, is when they're starting to get ready to treat, are they having symptoms of improvements where there is decreased inflammation in their body? And I know that is really important for their success. The next student, so we're living in a time where we're under a lot of stress. And so this student is under a lot of stress. One of her family members is sick. And then also she's a mom. So she's running her kids around to work, to activities, etc., and taking care of a sick family member, etc. But even just with the prep phase, even with not yet starting to treat, she's noticed that, she said, I've lost 15 pounds, and she wanted to. So if you don't want to lose weight, you don't have to, but it's just a bonus if you want to lose weight. And she said, my joint pain in my knuckles is gone. Again, decreased inflammation from infections likely in her joints. My ankle inflammation has improved dramatically. The coughing at night has stopped. Itchiness all over my body has stopped. And she said, still working on the balance, and that has not, slight improvements, but still have balance issues. So even though she's been dealing with a tremendous amount of stress, and she has not really started treating yet, she hasn't used any of the parasite treatments, etc., she's noticed all these improvements. And to top it off, she just shared too that I'm feeling so much better. Ankle pain is so much better, and I'm doing my spin bike exercises for about 4 weeks now. Since November, I haven't been able to get on my bike due to ankle pain, and now I'm able to bike at least 5 times a week. So amazing. And then this next student, literally, this was 4 days into the program. So 4 days into just learning the diet, not perfecting it yet, but just starting to implement a few things. He shared that following the diet for 4 days, not perfectly, I'm still learning. Last night, my bladder held longer than 4 hours, which is the first time in years. So you'll see a theme that one of the first symptom improvements with the prep phase, with the diet and supporting the body, is improved bladder. Really, really important. And so I've even looked at forums of people that don't have MS, but they have a lot of bladder issues. And when you go on there, they say that low-carb eating is far more helpful than any antibiotics or any medications for bladder issues. And we see that with the Live Disease-Free diet also. This next student is also newer, and he's getting ready to treat. And so he has ALS. So he doesn't have MS. A lot of my students have MS, but not all of them. Some of them have ALS, PLS, Parkinson's, etc. And then with MS, a lot of times they'll have other diseases like diabetes is very common, cancer also. So the thing is that when you just have like MS and you think, well, will this work for cancer? Will this work for diabetes? Will this work for arthritis? Yes, because they're all infectious diseases. So with this student that is in the program right now that is recovering from ALS, so within a couple of weeks of following the diet, and not perfectly, but pretty well, he's noticing that he has less spasticity in his body, not having very many muscle cramps. Interesting how ALS and MS and PLS, and probably Parkinson's also, they all have very similar symptoms. They have different infections for sure, but they do have similar symptoms. So just one sec here. I have to turn something off here. All right. So he's noticed, I have to find my place back here again. There we go. So he's noticed the spasms have decreased all over his body, and he has more energy, and his legs are not as weak. So this is all part of the decreasing the inflammation. So when we have chronic disease, we're infested with various disease-causing microbes, and we call it a parasitic infestation because we're really loaded with the wrong microbes, disease-causing microbes. So it's not just worms. Parasites are any microbe that lives in you and causes you harm. So that would include worms and protists, which are single-cell parasites, but also bacteria and fungi, possibly viruses. We don't really focus on them because they're the smallest of the problem, and it doesn't really seem to make much of a difference. We focus on the bigger problems first. So as you are decreasing the food to these infections, because their favorite food would be carbohydrates, then people notice that the infections are less active. They're not as happy. They're not as fat and happy. They don't get as much food. And with that, they notice that they have symptom improvements because when the microbes are less active, the inflammation starts to go down, and people have all these symptom improvements that I'm telling you about. They still have to treat the infections, but these are the symptom improvements that they see at the start. And then let's see. So he, that's the gentleman, that's our student, that's the wellness champion, I should say, that's recovering from ALS, just starting maybe 3 weeks in, and he's following the diet and starting to support the body, and he's starting to use the oxidizing agent. The next student, she has multiple sclerosis, but she's quite disabled. And I love the attitude of my students that are really disabled. They're like, I have been so sick for so long and I've been so disabled, I'm not expecting a miracle overnight. As long as I'm noticing symptom improvements, as long as I'm taking one step forward, I'm going to get there, right? It's the hare and the turtle, that story. So it doesn't matter as long as we're moving forward, as long as we're having symptom improvement. So sometimes the prep phase can take a little longer. If we're more disabled, if we don't have a lot of support, maybe we're in a care home, for example, it can take a little longer. So for her, she has been implementing the prep phase, so the diet, the live disease-free diet and supporting the body. And she has noticed that her bladder, she no longer has a sense of urgency. That's a really good sign. And for the first time in her life, she's having daily bowel movements every day. And we want that to be the case before we start treating. We do not want these parasites to be dying and rotting in us before we treat. And she's sleeping constantly sleeping 7 hours a night. So with a lot of our students, they have a hard time falling asleep. They wake up through the night. Sleep is a big problem. And if we don't sleep, we won't heal. So this prep phase is all about doing all those healthy things that help to modulate our immune system, which is decreasing the inflammation and making the treatment phase easier on us. So we tolerate the treatments better. But also, not just that, but it makes the treatments more effective. So the next student was quite disabled when she joined, and I think she joined about a month ago, maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago, and can't walk, hand clenched, really a lot of MS symptoms. So she has the support of her husband. He's wonderful. And so he's really been helping her a lot. So the diet got that under control. And she noticed just with the diet alone, her hand had been clenched for probably years and it opened. And they sent us a picture on Facebook. Amazing. So her hand had softened, opened up, and definitely sleeping better at night and bladder improvements tremendously. Energy was coming and going. So they followed the prep phase, which is the diet and supporting the body, and then they're ready to treat. So then now she is at the place where she's ordering samples of the commonly prescribed parasite treatments. And while they're waiting for that to come in so that she can be energy tested, they're starting with the oxidizing agent. They start with herbs, so they can start treating already, but maybe not the full effectiveness, but definitely will help. Except for sometimes we are very overambitious, and sometimes it's that we're overambitious and we'll take too many herbs. But this is why a coach is really helpful, because if we treat too aggressively for the state of our health, and everyone's different. Some people can handle more, some people handle less. Some people are sensitive to herbs, to supplements, to not parasite drugs, but any medication. So they have to go a little bit more slowly, but that's why the prep phase is so important for them also, because by preparing well, they will not be as sensitive and they'll be able to tolerate things a lot better. But anyhow, so they're ready to treat. They're waiting for the samples to come in to be energy tested. And then they're just kind of going gangbusters with the treatments. And she was feeling kind of tired and kind of lousy. And so I recommended, maybe back off a little bit. Like we always say, stop all the treatments, recover, which takes 1 to 3 days, and then take things a little bit more slowly for her state. So they did that. Let's just see I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. And before I go on to that, so they were starting to treat, and one thing they also noticed is that her spouse noticed that when she would stand up, her legs would be able to fully extend because she had not been walking for a long time. So she still doesn't have the ability to stand by herself and walk, but just in the very few weeks of following the diet and supporting the body a little bit, finding that her hand opens up and finding that she has more strength in her legs, that she can stand with assistance and actually extend her legs out. But anyhow, so she was taking all these herbs and the oxidizing agent and finding it too strong. And so we recommended just stop, recover 1 to 3 days. And when you do that, if you're using treatments that are helpful, you'll notice that when you stop and recover, that you feel better than you did before you started treating. And that's exactly what she noticed. So she said, so I didn't take the therapies actually just for 2 days. I